Hello all. Thank you for all your suggestions about this video, especially the WhatsApp channel list people. So today we'll be talking about installation and I'll try to cover all the questions that you have sent me on social media as I requested on the WhatsApp channel. So we'll continue from there. So as we know, Business Central 23 is available for on-prem and online, and we did understand how you download Business Central 23 on-prem. Today what we are going to do is we are going to install this version on my local PC. These steps can be followed in an on-prem installation. I'll try to explain how you do it on a multi-server setup so that you are clear how to do it. So the first thing first, let's extract the DVD if you have. Try to keep the DVD as closer to your root drive, because during installation, the files from these respective folder gets copied into your program files, x86 and other places. And if the file path is pretty long, then Windows kind of end up with an error message. So if you see right now, I have it on my root drive and the folder name is BC23. So make sure that the folder name is smaller and it's as closer to the root as you can, because that helps ending up with an error message or solving that issue first time. The first thing that you are going to do is click on setup and run it as administrator. Make sure that you always run your setup as administrator, which will pop up your welcome screen. I'll minimize the folder. Here you are on the Business Central setup. Let's click next. This is the license term, which you can read. Once you have read that, click on accept. And here you have two options to get a free online trial, which is available for 90 days and you can test it out. If you are still on-prem, choose the advanced installation option and then never choose demo, even if you are doing it on your machine, because there are so many components that you may or may not need and you'll lose the possibility of customizing something if you have to in the installation. I'll still go with the choose an installation option. Now there are different options available. Now here is where you need, I'll take a pause and we'll talk about the multi server structure. So if you have a server where you are going to install your service tier, then in that server you chose the server component and you customize it. When you go into customize, you see that very few selected components are being installed. One is the server, which gets your configuration file, and the IIS. Now if you want IIS and the service tier on separate machine, then you can always disable that particular component. And on the first server, install this. On the next server, install this and then uncheck this one. In this scenario, it is even telling you that it is not going to install the SQL Server database component on it. So now understand it. Let's assume that you have three servers. On the first server, you will install your SQL Server database component, where whatever the installation components are needed, and it also includes your demo database will get installed on your SQL Server. On the second server, you will install the server, which is brings your middle tier or the configuration file that connects your client to the database. On the third server, you will install the web server component, which install the IIS component, which are used to access the client. So that kind of hosts the Business Central website on your web server. So you choose on the third one, this one. But right now, I'm doing it all on my machine. So I'll choose the option developer and click on customize. I'm going to install AL development environment. You only see this option when you choose the client option. Oh, no, not there. Oh, it's nowhere. Okay. This makes sure that you have the VSIX file that's needed. I have my service tier on the same box. I would also like to have my demo database on the same box and for IIS. So before we move further, let's click on next. And here are some options where these files will be placed. You see the folder will be created as 230. What is your server component name? Now this is the server name where your services will be hosted. Now in this case, I'm using localhost. That means it'll be done on my machine, and the service will be called BC23. The server will start with the account called NT Authority Network Service, and if you're using a domain account, which should be for a service account, then you also need to key in the password. Why use a certificate thumbnail? We have talked about it for username and password. You can watch that video. If you need it for 2023 release wave 2, let me know into the comment section. Management service port 7045. If you already have another PC installed where this port is already being used, change it. Otherwise, keep it as it is. I'll add this rule to firewall so that this port is enabled. Then we have some default port. Client service port, to my surprise, is coming as 7085, which I prefer to keep it as 7046. So now I can customize it. The SOAP 7047, and I'm not enabling it. OData is 7048, I'm not enabling it. And then the developer service port, which is used to connect to your VS Code. So this is the port. If it is not 7049, you have to change in your launch.config that what port you are connecting to, and it is enabled. If you like to do snapshot debugging, then that's the port that's used, and I would make sure that it is enabled and the rule is added to the firewall. More or less done on the server side. So this component you will also see when you are installing it on the service tier, installing service tier on the server. Coming down is client authentication. I'll be using Windows in this machine at this moment, and then here is my SQL Server detail. So what I'm saying, my SQL Server is localhost, and the database name that will be created is demo database 23.0. Now remember, if you are using an instance on your SQL Server, and let me try seeing that, maybe I have one. Okay. So if you have your server name like this, localhost, in this case SQL 2009, then SQL 2009 becomes your server instance. If you are utilizing it like me, like localhost, then you don't need to specify SQL Server instance. While you are installing it, if it doesn't find a localhost SQL Server, it'll automatically suggest you to create a new instance, and it will install the express version of SQL Server. This is the database name. I'm not going to change it. And then there are some base URL which then gets set into your service tier. This component or this section refers to what goes into your IIS, where your website is hosted. So if you have a SSL certificate, you provide the detail here, and so on and so forth. So everything set. Before we head up, we can see that there is no such database on my SQL Server at this moment. Okay, and as well as in my IIS, what I see is just BC22 CU5, which I'm using right now. So what I'm going to do, let's go back and install this. Apply. As soon as I hit the apply, the first thing that it's gonna check that do I have the IIS prerequisite installed or not, because there are some certain settings that are needed to install the IIS component. So it's kind of verifying that while waiting for it. But while we are waiting for it, let's try to find out the system requirements for Business Central 2023 release wave 2. And I'm searching on my second browser. I'll bring it here. Okay, so here we are, because people normally have questions around it. So 2023 release wave 2. For the web client component, you need the browsers. For mobile app, which you are not using right now, the desktop app, you need the same thing. Office application, you need 2019 or higher, or Office 365. AL development environment, we know the drill, that is not part of the installation component in this case. Coming down, the server component. Now this is where Microsoft is talking about the service component. For this, you can only have these editions of Windows. Windows 11 Pro, Enterprise, or Education. not home edition. So keep that in mind, and it should be 64-bit. Or Windows 10 Pro, Enterprise or Education, again no home edition and 64-bit. You can also have the servers of 2022 and 2019 of only these two type, data center and standard. So just keep that in mind. These are minimum requirement, not the suggested requirement from Microsoft at this point. So keep that in mind also, that whatever we see on this list is just the minimum requirement, minimum system requirement. Hard disk space 2 GB, memory 8 GB, 16 GB if you are building big extension. If you are building extensions greater than 1000 object, then 32 to 64 GB. For integration, you need Identity Framework. If you are connecting to Dynamics 365 Sales, you will need .NET 6.0 and .NET Framework 4.8. Coming down into the queue, for the web server component. Now this is the component which install your website on IIS. You need again these operating system. Again, for Windows 10 and 11, it can be Pro, Enterprise or Education, not Home Edition. You will need IIS and you will need .NET Framework. Some of these components are automatically installed if your system meets the required operating system criteria and other hardware requirement. So if IIS is not installed, it's getting installed on my machine right now. So no worries. As you can see, some of the component has been completed and my IIS is still getting updated. So as soon as this gets updated, I should see a new node here for my BC23. So let's wait for that. So remember, no home edition of Windows that you can use for on-prem. It's a 64-bit requirement, and these are the minimum requirement, not the suggested requirement. So be very clear about it. As soon as the web server component is installed, I should see, and I should actually see the database right now. So if I hit refresh here, I should see that there's a demo database 23.0, and this is mapped or placed on a specific path which I have chosen here on my D database, but the file name doesn't look like good, and we'll come to that. Now this is completed. Let's close it down. Let's go back to our IIS, refresh it, and you will see BC230. Now what I can do is I can browse it from here, and that will open my web client on my browser. We'll talk about some of the nuances after this, after a while, so that you understand what if you have to change certain things. So stay. If you're planning to leave, just stay. Okay, there is some problem, it seems, and I have no clue. But what my problem right now is, and it might be a license issue that I haven't uploaded. I'll see that in a while. But let's come down. For some reason, I don't like these names, this and then the file name are completely off the chart, because when you see it, it'll be hard to manage these files, to remember what these files are. So what I prefer is, instead of renaming this, I'll delete this. Okay. Now I would like to restore the backup from the DVD. So what I'll do is I'll do a restore database. I'll go into my device, choose add, and then from here I'll go into my BC23 SQL demo database, Microsoft nav 230 database, demo database. Now I would like to give it the name as I'm doing till now. So what I'll do is BC23CU0, and this is US or North America, whatever you want to call it. Because my settings are set correctly, the files will be also named correctly and will be placed into the right path. Once I'm done with this, let's click OK. Now because we have manually restored this database, we also need to keep one more thing in mind, that I need to go to my security, choose the login that I've selected to run from my services from, which is this user, go to the user mapping, and make sure that there's a map set to that new database that we just created, and also it has the right to do that. Once I click OK, that all is done, but I still haven't updated my service. So let's go back here in my PowerShell, make sure it is administrator, and let's do the drill. Import module, Microsoft 365, 230 service PS1. Now this loads all the business central commands into my PowerShell, and I'm not sure what the parameters are, so I can do a set nav server configuration for my BC23. And I'm not doing the set, I'm actually doing the get right now, just to see what that looks like. Once I do that and I click run, it'll load the whole configuration file here. If I come here somewhere, it should say my database name, which is here. Okay, somewhere here, kind of forgot it. Here, the key that it is assigned to is database name, which I want to change. So now instead of get, I'll do a set. Now server configuration, my key name is this, database name, my server instance is this, and let me zoom this in if it is not visible. Okay, so my key name is the database name, the server instance is BC2230, and the value that I would like to assign it to is my new database name. Okay, let's run this, and this will set my service. Now one more thing which we haven't dealt with, and I'll just do my bit on it so that I don't get stuck into those situations, which is my license path. Because what happens, without the license you'll not be able to run it in certain cases. So what I'll do is run the another command to import the license. So if I do a export license, you will be able to see that there is a Cronus license attached to it. Okay, the service is not running. Okay, let's do the start of service then. Start nav server instance, server instance name BC230. Now this PowerShell command will make sure that my services are running. Now people who are coming from NAV, they will be like, why should we can't just open the administration panel and do it from there? Just a reminder for those, the service panel is no longer supported and on-prem, and it's never available on SaaS. And you will have to learn these PowerShell command to start doing your thing. So now the service is running. Let's export the license and see what comes out. And it says it's already assigned to my developer license, so I'm good here. So now let's go back and try to access the BC1230. I hit browse. At this point, because my service state has been updated, it should get connected to this environment if everything is good, and I should be able to access my BC230 or 2023 release wave 2 in my web browser. So let's give it a minute, let's see what happens, and then we'll move out of it. Now remember, the system requirement that we saw were the minimum system requirement. They are not the maximum service requirement or suggested system requirement. So at this point, if I go into my help and support, I should be able to see that I am utilizing the platform of 23.0 and application of 23.0, which technically tells me that I'm on Business Central 23 Cronus USA. So without wasting further time into it, if you have any questions regarding the installation, and if I was not able to cover the questions that you asked me on social media, just let me know. I'll make sure that we cover it into the future videos. You know the drill. If you like the content, hit the like button. If you think, and I think everybody should think, that our colleagues, fellow colleagues in the community should know how to install, then do share this video on your social media account. And if you haven't, please do subscribe to the channel. That helps us to understand what kind of videos you like, and your feedbacks are always welcome. Please keep them coming. Comment to these videos so that I understand where I'm going wrong, what changes I have to make when I'm doing it. I recently got a suggestion that my voice is not clear on this, so I'm trying to switch some modes on my microphone and hope it's better now. So your feedbacks are the greatest gift that we can have. Keep them coming, and we'll try to do as better as we can in our future videos. Till then, have a great day, and I'll see you sooner than later with the next video around BC23. Thank you.